Hello, Mr. Mailer here, your online math teacher. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be continuing my video series on Excel tips, and in particular looking at residuals and residual plots. So if you find this video helpful, consider smashing that like button, subscribing, and let's go. Now, I'm going to go over two different ways you can find the residuals and then make your residual plot. The first way I'm going to talk about is kind of the manual way. So if you're a little bit more advanced in your use on Excel, you probably can skip forward to the second half of this video, but this is really where I would reinforce to my students in particular what they are really doing when they're computing residuals and when they're computing residual plots. So you can see I already have some height and weight data here, and I already made my scatter plot, and I should have labeled it ahead of time, but the x-axis is my heights and my y-axis is my weights. So, and you can see my least squared regression line. So if I'm going to manually calculate my residuals and then make a residual plot, the first thing I need to do is use my residual equation here, and I'm going to make some predictions. So I've already labeled the column predicted weight, as we are using this least squared regression line to make predictions. So I'm going to type equals because I always am going to start any sort of function or calculation that I want Excel to do with an equal sign. Then I'm going to just start typing the equation here. So my slope was 9.27630, and this is a rounded number. In my other video, I showed how you can change the rounding. And we're making our predictions based on our heights. So the first height value I'm interested in a prediction for is 70. So I'm going to hit star because that's times. And then I'm going to hit A2 because 70 was stored in the A2 cell. So that's the cell I'm going to calculate my first residual for. Then I do minus 454.11634. So this is no different than if I plug 70 into my regression equation. I hit enter, and I now have my predicted weight. And the good thing about Excel, I'm going to click on the bottom right-hand corner. So you see this little black plus, and I'm going to drag down now. And when I've done that, it is said, well, by dragging, the next cell down, use A3 to make my prediction. After that, use A4. It's kept my other values exactly what I'd like, but it's changed the inputs going down the A column. So I've quickly made my predictions here. Now, if I want to find my residual, that is always the actual observed value minus your predicted value. So it's going to be these values in column B minus these values in column D. So I'm going to type equals. And I'm going to type B2 because the first actual value I have is this 180 in the B2 cell. So B2, and you see that cell is now highlighted, minus my predicted value, which is in the D2 cell, D2. And now you can see that's highlighted. So the actual value minus the predicted, hit enter. I now have my residual of a little bit less than negative 15. So again, I click on the bottom right-hand corner of the cell, which has my black plus sign now. I drag down, and it's computed all my residuals for me. You can click on each individual cell. You can see it said, now you want B3 minus D3, then B4 minus D4. So it's gone down the columns. And once you've done this, one way you could make a residual plot is to highlight your data here, go to insert, and just insert a scatter plot and know that this is the residual plot for your least squared regression line. Now, this is the manual way to do it. So I like having my students do this a lot of time because it reinforces what they're doing when they're calculating residuals and what these plots actually are. But there's a much faster way than this. So here's what we need to do. If you have not added into Excel the analysis tool pack, you will need to go to File, Options, Add-ins, and see how I have the analysis tool pack added. So you'd hit Excel Add-ins Go and just make sure you have it highlighted. So I already have it in there. Once you do it once, it's always done. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to go to data. And if you've added that analysis tool pack, you should see this data analyze button over here. I'm going to click on that. And it's going to bring me up a nice package of tools. And we're talking about regression here. So linear regression is what I'm focusing on. You can make your residual plots for other things, but we're interested in linear regression. So I would go to this regression button. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to ask for a Y input range and an X input range. So the X values are your explanatory variables, what you're going to use to make a prediction. That is in my A column. So I'm going to click and drag A there. Oh, I messed up. So sorry. X values is in the A column. So I click on the X input, click and highlight. It will put my data there. My observed outputs is my Y range, input Y range. So that's in my B column. I'm going to click and add that there. And I have some labels here. So I'm going to add labels. I did highlight those. And I am going to say I want to be able to see my residuals. I want to see the residual plot. And I want to see the line fit plots. So this is, you can click on other things, play around if you want. And I always make sure you have a new worksheet selected. Don't do it on the same sheet. So I'm going to say I've highlighted all my data I want to base this on now. I've clicked residuals and residual plots. Those are the main things I really want to look at. I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to add a pretty complicated page here for you. So you have a lot of different numbers, but you'll notice you have two plots. So one is this residual plot, which if I go back to my sheet one, looks very similar to what you got here, which makes 100% sense. We should be getting roughly the same picture. There's some more rounding error in this manual approach, but that's fine. But the question is, well, I can see my scatter plot itself. That's fine. And I got my predictions there. So I can see my predictions versus my actual ones if you want. See how far apart they are. All the predicted ones fall exactly on a line as you'd expect. Where can I figure out the equation for my line? I know from manually putting it on my scatter plot before, my slope is about 9.72 and my y-intercept is negative 454 approximately. Well, that's right down here. See this height? This first entry here under coefficients and height, that tells you your slope. And right above that is your intercept in here. So it gives you your slope and your intercept for that least square regression line. So you could use this table to figure out what your least squared regression line is as well. You also have your R squared value and a bunch of other information on this page, including the actual residuals we computed on the other page. So if you compare these to what we calculated by hand, the only difference is rounding error. So this is a much faster way to get your residuals. So it can see the predicted weights and their residuals. So this is the more advanced, fast way to get your residual plots in Excel. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, smash that like button and consider having an awesome day today.